Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada.
Several years. So we started this podcast a few years ago, kind of as like a goof. I don't know if it was a goof, Derek, but we
It still is.
Yeah, it still is. But it really took some good traction because I think we just brought on a nice combination of definitely more medical, some coaches, not as many coaches as you would think, but we like to bring people on who we feel has has something to say and answer a lot of questions. And Derek, Arash is someone I've been watching at Bev's. I mean, I've been training at Bev's since I'm 16, 17. I mean, Arash, you didn't start competing till what, 2014, I want to say?
14. Yeah, I started training that about 2011, 12.
Right. And it was really interesting because he's someone we didn't, in that gym, people don't talk much to each other, but you kind of see someone in there and I see him moving around. And then we start, having a couple of conversations. And then I remember when they launched the classic physique division. Was that when you jumped on stage?
I jumped on stage in 14 prior to classic physique. So I turned pro in men's physique.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
That was it. And I think what was interesting was classic is really, that's you. Classic is way more you, I feel like.
Yeah. Are we on? Are we filming?
Yeah, we just go for it.
Give me 1 second. Let me turn. Is it okay? Let me turn the dryer.
Yeah, please go. D, so just giving you a little background. So, Arash is, he's an Olympia competitor. He's someone who's, at the highest level. See you later.
I just like his room.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, we were saying that we like your room. Where is that? That's pretty cool. I'm the only one with that. I don't have a cool background, unfortunately. So, So Derek, Derek. It was interesting because Arash is someone I've been really watching over, probably the last, whatever it is, 6 to 8 years, and just seeing the change in his physique, and then getting the privilege of being able to talk to him and learn from him, and really look at him as one of the guys, not only being one of the best in the world with being on the Olympia stage, but someone that I think really takes, a very smart scientific approach to not only training, but nutrition and understanding the body. It's not just about him going and throwing around weights. He's very methodical about everything that he does. So this is pretty much why I wanted to get him on the podcast so bad, because first off, I feel like we could spend hours on this, but today I'd love to talk with some training talk and a little bit of nutrition talk and just go through some of the basics. And, our people who are listening to us are going to love it. And then we can take it from there. So great to have you on.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. And thank you for the kind words.
That's all good. So classic physique, that was, even though you were in men's physique, for some reason, I remember when classic physique launched, I almost came running up to you and I was like, this is good. And you were like, I didn't sleep last night. I remember you saying something to that effect. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I started bodybuilding when I was 13 years old, just because of Arnold and Sylvester Stallone and Hulk Hogan. I was like, that's what a man's supposed to look like. So that was just in my head. I was a martial artist. I played football, but I started lifting weights, really lifting weights, not just messing around. Like 13. By 16, I could have competed, but I didn't know anything about it. Didn't have anyone around me. I was making my meals, drinking my water. So I lived that lifestyle for 21 years until 2014. I was at Bev's and I didn't love classic physique. I'm a bodybuilder at heart, but that's where I fit in. I wasn't really big enough to compete in the NPC and bodybuilding. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a go. And just because of the muscle maturity, I looked like I was 20, but I was 34 years old at the time. So just because of the muscle maturity, I turned pro within 3 months. I did 3 shows, turned pro. So I competed in the pro division the next year. I did 3 pro shows. I didn't do bad. I got 2nd in Puerto Rico, 5th in New York Pro, but didn't qualify for the Olympia. So the next year I'm thinking, what do I do? They announced classic physique. And the first thought that came to my mind, besides 100% I'm doing this, is that, all those years, I didn't know exactly why I was bodybuilding, the meals, the water, the training. I just knew I had to be doing this. It just felt right. It was a part of my life. And at 2016, I felt like, this is why, it was just perfect timing. And it's just, it was the right thing for me. It was the right fit.
So Derek, what's interesting about it is that there's really 3 main divisions, right? There's men's physique, there's classic physique, and then there's the open, right? In my eyes, is there anything else?
There's one more that's 212.
Oh yeah, that's Kevin English, right? What he
Yeah,
was in?
and they're monsters. They're huge, but they're basically shorter guys. So you can't be heavier than 212 pounds, but they look like the open guys.
Oh,
Just
they look like they're 250. I mean, when you see pictures of them, you're like, well, what's the difference here? But what's interesting, I didn't mean to downplay the 212s. I mean, these guys worked just as hard, and their physiques are outstanding. But the men's physique, what was, God, I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but great physiques. But like, what I didn't like about it is that you're in these board shorts and you can't really, I observe someone's lower body training, even though they have to train the lower body, in my opinion, to get that type of upper body. But there was something, I mean, a classic physique for me is when I think of like almost Arnold's physique and Steve Reeves and Frank Zane. And there's this whole like cluster of culmination of these older physiques that we looked at. That was something to me that I feel like is the most appealing. The open division, Derek. These are the guys, the biggest. The Ronnie Coleman's. I always like to say Ronnie because I think he was the greatest, one of the greatest. But the classic physique to me, those are the guys I look at on stage and I'm like, damn, I want to look like that.
Yeah. Well, the men's physique. All the guys now, all the top guys, they train their legs. They have phenomenal legs. Just to get overall muscularity and overall lower body fat, body composition, you need to train your legs. It's 100%. biggest calorie expenditure of the week. But what it was, I understand why they wear their board shorts, and what it was mainstream. When it first started, it was like, look, I wake up like this. This is a lifestyle. I didn't prep and have a peak week for this show. I just look like this all the time. And they genuinely did look like that. They had beach bodies. Now they're miniature bodybuilders. They're freaky looking. It's evolved, but every single division has evolved. And since Classic came out, there's still arguments and debates. What's classic? What's classic? And the reason there's that issue of what's classic is because bodybuilding, every division, even the women's divisions, have come such a long way since the 70s, since Arnold. We are so much more conditioned and drier, meaning less water subcutaneous between the muscle and the skin. So we can't go backwards. It would be very hard to judge a less conditioned athlete. So those guys that you mentioned, most of the classic guys maybe look like that like 6-7 weeks before a show. If Arnold was around today with his mindset, he'd still be great because he would do what it takes to be like the great guys today. But if you took Arnold's physique at that time, he's not conditioned enough and his legs are way too small to be an open bodybuilder. So bodybuilding has evolved, and so does the bodybuilder. So classic, in my opinion, is a mix of today's open bodybuilding and the smaller aesthetic size of the older guys in the 70s.
100%. Derek, you want to jump in?
Yeah, like I obviously I haven't followed it as closely as Don. Like I remember watching Franco and Arnold and Ferrigno and all those guys. That's, when I was young. When did it start to diverge into these categories, and what was the impetus for it?
Well, basically, Classic is the newest one. It started in 2016.
Okay.
And, a lot of people argue that bodybuilding was just, dying in the 90s. Like that was the best. But, before in the 80s and 90s, it was on ESPN, and bodybuilding has always struggled to go mainstream. And that's a whole nother discussion. The reason is because it's not relatable. People don't relate to it. It just looks crazy. Even a natural bodybuilder is just like freaky looking. People look at it and they can't relate. Although it's really interesting because the people will watch pro basketball players, Kobe or Jordan, they can relate because they could go to the court. But at the end of the day, if they gave their all, their 100%, their whole life dedicated to basketball, they would never become a fifth of what Kobe and Jordan are because they just don't have the genetics and the mental capability or capacity. Whereas bodybuilding, everybody bodybuilds. So from bodybuilding from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, all the doctors now, the HRT clinics, all the celebrities, and all the training and diet has all trickled down and was learned from bodybuilders. We're, so to speak, the guinea pigs. So from keto diets to carb cycling to low carb diets to fat burners, it all came from bodybuilders. So people look at bodybuilders and like, I can't relate to that. I don't want to watch that. But what they don't know is the majority of what they read and learn about fitness and weight loss and all this stuff has come from bodybuilding. Prior to Joe Weider, opening gyms for bodybuilding, making magazines for fitness and bodybuilding. And when I say bodybuilding, we're talking about changes in body composition, not just being massive and flexing on stage in your underwear. with some oil on. But before him, what gymnasiums and weights represented was strength. That's all it was. It had nothing to do with looking good. It had nothing to do with having a beach body, or even for females. It was just powerlifters, you know? So it's like this huge evolution. But going back to what I was saying is it's not mainstream, and that's the problem. And I think that's why we brought so many other divisions. That's why the MPC and IFBB brought so many other divisions, to make it bigger and just kind of capture other people, because besides women's bodybuilding, there was nothing else. Now bikini has a lot of young girls that are just like beautiful bodies and gym bodies. They're not like freak bodybuilders, and men's physique too. So when you go to these amateur shows now, you see more men's physique competitors than bodybuilders.
It's crazy.
In a way, it's kind of sad, but in a way, it's, you know, a lot of the bodybuilders at first would talk bad about men's physique and vice versa. They're completely different. We all pretty much do the same thing. We all work really hard. And look, it made the sport and the division, not the division, but the league bigger. So you can't.
It really is, Derek. It really is. I'm obviously not a bodybuilder, but I am. But I'm not a competitive bodybuilder on stage. But I'm so like connected to it, and I've been such a fan of it since I'm a younger kid. For the exact reasons Arash said. You start looking at Arnold. I remember being a young kid seeing Michael Hearn on a cover and just looking at this guy and being like, "Wow, this guy's big. He's good looking. Like, look at his build. Like, look at his level of confidence." And I remember being, whatever I am younger. I'm 10 years younger than Mike, being like, shit, like this guy looks good. This is how I want to look. And I remember those guys were the ones that kind of grew me. But I almost feel bad if someone's never gone to a show and actually experienced the energy. Or when you go there, and I love the prejudging more than anything. Because I'm sitting there and I'm watching every competitor up there. They're almost fighting for their life. Like, you could just see up there the intensity. You could see that this is not 16 weeks of prep. This is 5, 10, 15, 20 years of preparation and posing and all this crap that people do not see behind closed doors. And what bothers me is I feel people devalue it sometimes, and they're always putting it on other things. And you've got to be, in my opinion, you got to be a great athlete to be on stage doing what these people do. We're doing what you guys do, because there's so much discipline. There are so many little things that you have to pay attention to. And I didn't know if you wanted to just give us, give everyone a couple of examples of, maybe some things that you, found really difficult early on in your career that you had to master to kind of get to the level that you're at today.
Well, bodybuilding, as cliche as it sounds, is literally an art and a science. Like, you have that whole stereotype about big guys being meatheads and like kind of being stupid, like, duh. But honestly, if you ever talk to any successful bodybuilder, they're highly intellectual, because we have to know so much about so many different things. Like when I go to my regular doctor visits, it's usually me teaching the doctor, which is it's very upsetting, because unless you go to a specialist, like, doctors don't read up and research. But there's so many factors and so many elements in your life that have to come together for you to be the best you can be in any aspect of life, really, but in bodybuilding for the sake of this conversation. So for me, early on, I started training, I started lifting, I was doing my best, and I was like, well, I don't look like these guys. I mean, I have good genetics, but like, I wasn't turning into a freak overnight. And I realized early on, we didn't have social media, we didn't have YouTube, I didn't have access to, like, now guys have access to the best bodybuilders in the world that they could DM them on Instagram and have a conversation. So I had to do a lot of reading, a lot of digging on the internet, and I found a forum, and I was on the forum all the time. So I learned nutrition. That's what changed me. I learned how to eat properly. And man, let me tell you, I had my own refrigerator at 16 years old in my house. And I grew up in the restaurant business, so I was very handy in the kitchen. And I'd go to Restaurant Depot and I'd buy a 40-pound box of chicken breast. I'd clean it, cut it up, freeze it. And all my food was measured starting at 16 years old. And I never stopped. So I learned this early on, that if you don't eat, you're not going to grow. So not to change its subject, but everyone's always asking,
it's on subject.
What's important, more important, training or diet? Everyone asks this all the time. And we always say it's 100% training and 100% diet, or it's 50-50. To be the best you can be, yeah, it's 50-50. But just for the sake of this, there's more power in nutrition alone than training. What does that mean? You can train 5 hours a day. You can bench 500, squat 500, deadlift 500, run 5 miles a day. But if you don't eat properly, you're not going to grow. And if you eat terribly, like pizza and burgers and candy, you're just going to stay fat with all that expenditure. But let's say you don't train at all. You sit on the couch and you overeat, you'll gain weight. If you undereat, you'll lose weight. So that's what I mean by there's more power in nutrition alone. But a lot of people just think you go into the gym and you just work out and push, and most people work out incorrectly and maybe overtrain or undertrain. Very few people train the right amount. They either do not enough or they do too much. But all of that doesn't work if your nutrition is not proper. It's not good. And we're not just talking about looking good. You know, the first like 20 years for me was all about looking good. So I would get low calorie stuff, sugar-free stuff, diet soda when I had a sweet tooth. And then, you know, in my 30s, I was like, okay, I look good doing this, but is this stuff really okay to put in my body? So that was a huge change for me, where it's like, you know what? I don't want to look like a god for a few years and then just be all messed up when I get older. So I've changed my outlook the past like almost 10 years, and I eat very differently and very clean, very healthy.
Can you go through? I mean, everyone's going to be interested to hear this, and I understand you've been asked this a million times, so I understand if you roll your eyes to it. But can you go through a typical day of eating, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure. So it depends if it's off season or pre-contest. What really changes for me is the amount of food. I eat the same food all the time, like the same type of meals. And no, they're not boring. No, they're not bland. The people that eat steamed chicken and steamed broccoli just don't understand that you can season your food. So currently, I'm doing fasted cardio only 3 days a week because of my schedule. So the days I do fasted cardio, I wake up and I immediately, within like 10 minutes, I put on my clothes, have a coffee, go to the gym. I do my cardio. So fasted cardio is cardio before breakfast. So I do my cardio and I come back and I have a meal and I go about my day. Now throughout the day, my meals are spaced out roughly 3 hours. Sometimes it'll be a little bit earlier, 2.5 hours if I get a late start, or vice versa. Sometimes I'm really busy and it'll go further than 3 hours, which, by the way, being busy is the best thing for dieting, because when people say bodybuilding and working is hard, sitting on your ass at home and bodybuilding is hard, because all you do is look at that refrigerator. So, I eat those meals throughout the day. And then there's a point in time where I go to the gym, and what I eat before and what I eat after the gym is very, very strategic. So I have about 6 meals throughout the day. And right now I have 2 training sessions. One is lifting weights and a little cardio, and the other one is cardio. Now in the off season, when I'm not getting ready for a show, it's one session of training and cardio. The meals stay the same. And I make sure I get 8 hours or more of sleep a day.
All right.
It's very interesting, Don.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the whole point that Arash brought up, but a lot of people are going to be working from home and near that refrigerator, like, and it's going to have consequences if people aren't as organized, right?
Look, here's the deal. It's a mind game, right? This is all mental. Yeah, it's a physical sport, but it's so mental, man. Like, it's mental in every aspect, every sport, but bodybuilding even more so. So some people just don't have big appetites. They're not big eaters. They're very speedy. There's a lot of different personality types, and they're directly correlated to their metabolism too. You guys know when you have certain friends that are just very speedy and they don't finish their meal. Like, I've never not finished a meal in my life. I'm just a big eater. So for those people, it might be easier. For me, it's tough, especially in the evening. If I'm not busy in the evening and I have my 7:30 meal, waiting for that 9:30, 10 o'clock meal is the hardest part of my day. And, you can drink, like I drink carbonated natural seltzer or water, but then you got to wake up so many times to sleep. So that's really, really tough. Staying busy is the, like, one of the best pieces of advice I could give. And besides the cardio and the training, being active, like, you can track your steps, just moving around in the office, up and down stairs, down a city block, expends energy. But if you're at your desk for like 9 hours a day, well, that's going to affect your metabolic output,
So, it's interesting. Can you give everyone some maybe tricks on how to actually enhance the flavor of their food? Because, yeah, I mean, this bodybuilding's had this stigma of steamed chicken, steamed broccoli, steamed brown rice. I mean, it's just like, boring, boring, boring. And then, people are complaining why they can't put on muscle. And I'm convinced that 99% of the planet probably undereats to begin with. Like they're just missing meals and everything, that demand is just slowing down. And then they wonder why, when they go in even more of a deficit, why they can't lose weight. So can you talk? I mean, you've already kind of you've already dove in on the importance of calories, but can you maybe give some tips on how to kind of enhance the flavor to that will
Absolutely.
allow yourself to still stay, because part of it is listen, you're kind of walking around with that dry look a lot. I mean, you're one of these bodybuilders, Derek. He's one of these bodybuilders that walks around. He never gets like out of condition. Like even in his off season, what I admire about him is, and we'll talk about training in a second. His training is precise. He does not leave one rep on the table, and you could tell just from his conditioning walking around that you're always walking around. You're never putting on 100 pounds in the off season and putting on 20% body fat. Can you talk about like how do you do that
Well, first
in
of all, we
season
should
off
do
season?
another podcast just on nutrition, not even
Yeah,
bodybuilding, but like veganism. I'd love to talk about that,
love
intermittent
it.
fasting, everything, right?
Sure,
So food is a problem in this country.
I agree.
That being said, it depends what your taste buds are, what nationality you are. Like almost all cultures, the seasoning is no calories. We're
Mm,
not talking about butter and oil. That's not even an option. You don't cook with butter or oil. Oh, but oil is healthy. Olive oil is healthy. Yes, absolutely. It is very healthy in its raw state. Every oil has a smoking point. Once you pass that, it's crap. It's bad for you. So
mhm.
putting that aside, I mean, my oatmeal tastes like Persian ice cream. I'm from Iran. I'm Persian, and Persian ice cream is made. It's yellow ice cream. It's made with saffron, which is delicious. I put it in almost every meal, and rose water. I know it sounds crazy, but it tastes like rosy saffron ice cream. So my oatmeal has always been pink salt, which I'll touch on in a second, stevia, because I have a big sweet tooth. I like everything sweet, but I cut out artificial sweeteners and I don't have sugar. So I use stevia and cinnamon. That's what I made my oatmeal for the past 20 years. There wasn't stevia back then. I used to use artificial sweetener. But now I do the same thing without the cinnamon and I put saffron, which is technically like it's very healthy. And they also say it's a fat burner, but probably have to drink a bottle of it. And the rose water. So, like, that's my oatmeal, for instance. When I have
Fancy.
a tiny portion of chicken breast, white rice, and a portion of chicken, which I don't eat large portions of animal protein. A lot of bodybuilders will eat like half a pound in not half a pound, I'm sorry, like even more than that, 10 ounces in a meal. I don't do that. I don't eat that much. And we can touch on that
What
later.
are you
But
about 4 to 6 ounces in that
I
range?
eat 6 ounces of protein, which is less than I ate when I was an amateur and half the size as I am now. So I eat 6 ounces. And then when I have high carb days, I'm very strategic. I lower my protein. A lot of guys don't think to lower their protein. They always just think about carbs and fat. Well, if you lower your protein, your caloric intake for the day went down. So if your carbs go up on a high carb day, you're technically not that many more calories.
Hmm.
And I also drop fats on my high carb day. So my calorie doesn't change that much, but I have like triple the amount of carbohydrates, which affect your body differently. But I use saffron, I use salt in all my meals. Look, if you're older and you have a lot of health problems, don't listen to me, listen to your doctor. But there's a big misconception about salt being bad for you and making you bloat. And the fact that the matter is, it's exact opposite. If you withhold sodium, if someone don't do this at home, I already did this, so I'll tell you the experience. If you cut out sodium completely from your diet, it's impossible because it's in all foods. But if you literally don't add any salt to your diet, you will not be able to walk tomorrow, let alone train. It will
Hmm.
drain the shit out of you.
Hmm.
Aside from that, we have a hormone called aldosterone. And when you cut sodium, aldosterone will go up. There's an actual drug called aldactone that's given to suppress aldosterone. When aldosterone goes up, you retain water. Now, jump forward to another discussion we'll have about fitness is homeostasis. If you want to manipulate your body and make it do stuff that it doesn't want to do, the first thing you have to do is understand it. You have to understand homeostasis. The body's always trying to keep this equilibrium, this neutral space that's healthy and keeps you alive. So sodium actually does not bloat you, and it makes your food taste incredible. Anything sweet, any dessert you've ever had has a lot of sodium in it. So I use pink salt because I just think it's a better type of sodium, but I heavily salt all my meals and it's all measured. And why is it measured even in the off season if I'm not doing contests? Because water and sodium staying consistent gives you a consistent look. if all of a sudden one day you don't have water or you have a quarter of what you normally drink, it's going to affect the way you look. And same thing with sodium. People are like, oh, I'm flat. I have a lot of guys come to me and say I'm flat. And what that means is their muscles aren't as full and hard and round. When you see me in the gym and I'm close to a show and I look all crazy and veiny and pumped, most of the time I'm barely eating any carbs. So how are my muscles full of glycogen? They're not, they're depleted, but the sodium in the water is what is keeping my muscles full. As we know, muscle tissue is mainly water. So sodium and water is such a huge thing that's overlooked and misunderstood. So when you have a lot of sodium in water, and granted, I'm not talking about somebody that's overweight and fat. They're not going to notice this, but you in the condition you walk around in, you're really lean and you have a great deal of muscle on your frame. So for you, if your sodium intake and your water intake was high, maybe you'd bloat for a day. I doubt it. But let's say you did hypothetically, after 2-3 days, your body is going to try to maintain homeostasis. It has a sodium and a potassium pump, and it's going to say, hey, there's too much sodium around here, and it starts pumping it out. And that's called diuresis. It's literally a natural diuretic. So back in the day, bodybuilders used sodium and water load before shows and then abruptly cut it.
Right. And that was something you and I think we spoke about in the gym.
Yes.
A few years ago, because I did confront you about some preps, some prep information. And when you said this salt, I almost felt stupid. I walked off. I was like, well, of course. It's like, this makes perfect sense. And, started salting my food to taste. Derek, he said something really interesting. And, you mentioned how your body finds homeostasis and how, day in and day out, if there's so much change, your body in a way doesn't really know to adapt. Like it's kind of, and this is the problem I see with most people in dieting. And I want to get your 2 cents on this. If someone and you've seen this, someone jumps into a nutrition plan, they may want to count macros, a specific diet plan, and they're consistent for a day or two, and then they fall off. And then, and then they get back on, and then they fall off. And then a week or two later, they're like, I'm not gaining weight, I'm not losing weight. And you're like, well, let's look at your plan. And you look at the plan, and it's so volatile from day to day. One day the person's at 200 grams of protein, another day, and it's not like nothing strategic. This isn't carb cycling. This is like one day they're like, oh, I didn't know I was at 200 grams of protein one day, and another day I was at 100 grams, and then my fat was at 200 grams. It's like you're all over the place. Can you talk about the importance of consistency when trying to make change? Because I'm finding out there that most people who think, they're doing what they need to be doing aren't.
So you can make gains. You can get in good shape and lose weight, having a lifestyle diet and sticking to some fundamental rules.
Sure.
The reason that we're so meticulous eating the same thing every day and measuring everything and having it at the same time is because if it unfolds in a great way and we look amazing in 3-4 days or a week or a month, we know why. If we end up looking like crap, we know why. Whereas your average Joe wakes up one day, he's like, holy cow, I look amazing. They have no clue why. So, I'm like you mentioned the sodium thing and you felt stupid. I feel stupid a lot of times when I come off the Olympia stage because I'm like, what did I do wrong?
Right.
It's an ever learning process. And then once you learn something, it's not set in stone because your body changes and evolves, Right. So I think it's really like when I have people that aren't bodybuilders, I love coaching regular people because bodybuilders know that they can transform their body in 90 days. Bodybuilders know what's going to happen when they work hard. Regular people don't. They think they need some magical pill or surgery. If you tell a regular middle-aged person that you can change their life and change their health and drop 20 to 40 pounds of fat on their body in 90 days, they'll either laugh at you or kiss your feet.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is 90 days of consistency and discipline, it's very much possible. So point is, like, I try to give people flexibility in their diet, but at least for the first 2 weeks, I need them to be really, really strict and know exactly what they're eating and the measurements so I can learn what their body's telling me. Being a good coach has nothing to do with looking good. Just because you got ripped and you want to show doesn't mean you can coach another human being. Being a good coach, you have to have a tremendous amount of knowledge of the human body, training and nutrition. Then you have to be able to talk to someone else's body. Our bodies talk to us. It tells us what's going on through the mirror, the scale, and some questions you ask the person, how they feel, how their training is going. And then you have to figure out what needs to change, go up or down, and what the body needs to keep making progress. And that's another thing. I'll jump to another subject. You know, our bodies are they become efficient, right? Because we always want to survive. You take a human being, you throw them in the desert, you throw them in the jungle, they evolve, and the cultures evolve, and our bodies are good at doing that. If you're an athlete, if you're a basketball player or football, you want to be efficient and at running and endurance, and you don't want to burn a lot of calories. You want to be efficient at it and be able to do it for hours. That's not the case with weightlifting and body composition and even regular people losing weight. So what happens after a week or two, like you ever have someone follow a diet, they're really following it, and they tell you, I don't know what happened, I'm not losing weight, and you think they're cheating on their diet. They're doing the same diet, they're doing the same work, but all of a sudden they stop losing weight. It's because the human body is smarter than the bodybuilder. And I'm not talking about someone that's extremely overweight, but someone that's in good shape, that's lean and is in a true caloric deficit. Even someone that is overweight, as long as they're in a caloric deficit, their body says, whoa, what's going on here? We're not getting enough food and we're expending a lot of energy. Your body does not know it's 2020 and there's a fridge, a McDonald's, and a 7-Eleven. So what it does is it slows your metabolism so you live longer. We don't want that. A slow metabolism doesn't equal a six-pack. So that's why the whole infamous cheat meal has come about. And people think cheat meals are just because it's Sunday or just because I deserve it. No, a cheat meal is a surplus of calories. It doesn't mean it has to be garbage processed food. It's a surplus of calories to tell your body, hey, we're not dying, relax. And if done properly, your metabolism will go through the roof to the point where you will sweat in your sleep and you'll feel your body warmer. Literally, I will get hot. My body temperature will rise on the days that I have cheat meals.
But do you do, I mean, are you more of a cheat meal guy or are you more of a refeed guy? Because I feel like I think you just kind of defined them both, but that's how I would normally define them. Like you're never, are you ever going out and eating just like pizza and ice cream? Is that part of what you need to do once in a while? Or are you just,
I do both.
You do both?
I
And
do
how are you
both.
strategic about that?
I love pizza and I love ice cream, but pizza a couple times a year, I don't think it's that beneficial for me in the refeed. Ice cream, I mean, I was doing it on my cheat days and it was messing my stomach up. I'm not a fan of dairy. I'm not lactose intolerant. I can handle it, but I don't think it has any place in our diets. So not those two, but burger and fries is my go-to. So I love having it and I enjoy it. And as long as I'm not high in body fat in the off season, I'll have that. Now, getting ready for the Olympia, currently I have a high carb day, and in the same day, I have a burger and fries day. I didn't do this last year or the year before, but right now, where my body's at and how I'm dieting for the rest of the week and how much cardio I'm doing is correlated to that refeed and cheat. It's a big refeed and cheat, but I end up not gaining a pound. I end up looking harder and better the next day. As I get closer to the show, a lot of guys will still do those cheats and burger and fries. Me personally, I do just more refeed and high carb days. Sometimes it'll be like sushi, but like genuine real sushi, not like the rolls with all the crap in them.
Right.
That's that. And also like burger and fries and pizza, you can't, like, if you're trying to be strategic like weeks before a show, you have no clue how many calories are in it and what is about. Even this far out, I'm having the burger consistently at the same place, same size, same burger, same everything.
We're just curious, where's it from? Where do you go?
Five Guys.
I knew you were gonna say that. That a boy. You and Juan Morello. I was joking around. Juan can eat, man.
And listen,
Derek,
I'm not Juan is my alter ego. I'm a huge eater. I've never been had someone be able to eat more than me. I used to eat a huge amount, but the past 4 years, I can't get any bigger and I can't eat like that monster get big. So I try to lose muscle in prep. So I've gotten used to really eating small portions and not lots of food.
Derek, you got anything?
Is it okay when you talk to people, and even both of you guys, is it okay to be hungry for extended periods of time, just to feel it? Because I know, like, I'm 51 now, and like you said, Arash, like I had to change my diet because of the harder I'd work out, I still wouldn't see any difference. But when I started modifying my diet, and I do kind of what you do in the morning, like I have a coffee, go work out, and I kind of offset having a meal because I almost feel like it helps me.
Absolutely. Hunger is a defense mechanism from the early humans telling you, hey, buddy, get up and go find food. That shit might take like 6 hours or 6 days. So you can, in 2020, absolutely ignore hunger. You don't need to eat today or tomorrow. That sounds crazy, right? You don't need to. You really don't need to. You have plenty of glycogen in your muscles from what you ate yesterday. And you have plenty of, not that you're fat, don't get me wrong, I can only see up there up, but we all three of us have plenty of body fat to last us a couple months. Human beings don't need food to last weeks and months. We need water. We can't last without water. So to go back to your question, yeah, you can ignore hunger 100%. I'm not an advocate of regular people that are not trying to be performance athletes or mass monsters. I don't recommend them eating 6 times a day. I think intermittent fasting, that's its big fad now. It's what's natural to humans. That's why it's so good. Yeah. And it's not even, listen, you can get fat on intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is not a diet. It's just a different way of eating. So if you eat X amount of calories and over expenditure in that allocated window where you're allowed to eat, you're not going to lose weight just because you didn't eat for 16 hours. But intermittent fasting has a lot of mental good aspects to it. Mentally, makes you sharper, makes you more focused, and it also prolongs your life. You'll live longer. So if you're gonna like prolong breakfast, just don't have any calories in that coffee, like no milk, dairy, or sweetener, just so you really are getting the benefits of fasting. And the easiest window to intermittent fast is 8 to 12, 8 p.m. till 12 the next day, because for the most part, you're sleeping. And if you ever notice if you're hungry, but you're super busy, what happens? It goes away. Your hunger goes away. So when you talk to people that fast for days and weeks, after the first few days, it's like, it's not that hard. It's all mental.
But fasting's not something that would really be in your like kind of call it your ensemble. I mean, you're someone who's trying to always put on this level, this high quality level of muscle. Or are you mixing fasting in for something to give your digestive system a break, a mental break? Like, are you ever using that tool?
Honestly, most bodybuilders are always trying to be as big as possible. So no, I don't recommend intermittent fasting. But if you're just trying to really get really conditioned and possibly lose size, it's possible. I've seen it being done. I've never done it myself. And another reason is I'm always working with a friend or a coach. And like a lot of guys don't believe a lot of the things that I'm saying today. But I think if I was to fast as a bodybuilder getting ready for show, one thing I would be sure not to do is cardio or training in that fast. I wouldn't do that in the window, because there you're in danger of breaking down muscle tissue.
Breaking down muscle. And have you ever thought about, I mean, there's been some, I played around with it a little bit. I'm not one that would really fast much, but if I did, I would, and some people wouldn't consider this fasting, but I would almost do some type of amino loading throughout the workout. So if I had to train during that fast, I am having an amino acid during that.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if is there any science out on that, or if it's actually, does that make sense, or is it well that's not a fast. I mean, you're putting putting amino acids in. You know what I'm saying?
You're gonna get leaner, and it's gonna affect you in your body composition compared to eating meals. So you'll definitely get leaner, but no, you're not gonna get the benefits of intermittent fasting.
Exactly.
But like for me in the future to do like longer fasts, it has nothing to do with like my physical body, like makeup. It's for me, it would be like more enlightenment, and like all the most enlightened human beings on this earth all fasted.
But I agree with that, D. I don't know if you've ever done any fasts. I actually have a group of guys right now. They want to do a 2-day fast with me, and they've done it before. And I'm gonna do it. I'm just not ready to do it right now. Like I'm feeling too on point with my eating, and my training feels good. So I'll kind of save it. But to when I need that level of, like you said, enlightenment, or that maybe that reset, that mental reset. But I think it's interesting. Derek, have you fasted?
Not extensively, just like what Arash was saying, like, the 8 p.m. to, afternoon type thing. But no, I haven't done a couple of days. I don't know if I could.
You definitely can. And I think for people that start fasting north of 16 hours, it's not even about the fitness and the working out. My cousin is a psychology professor. He used to be a track star, was on his way to the Olympics, blew out both of his knees, and it messed him up so much mentally, he became a psychologist. And he's older now, and he's got 2 kids, and he put on some belly fat. So he reached out to me like a year ago about keto, ketosis diet. So I taught him how to do it, and now he knows more about it than I do. And then he started fasting 1 day, 2 days. I think he just did a 7-day fast.
That's crazy.
And it has nothing to do with trying to lose weight. It's all mental. It's all mental. There's so much that you can benefit from. But if we want to talk about the physical, it's also giving your body a break. Like I've been eating 6 meals a day for years. So like my stomach is working all the time. And a lot of guys, bodybuilders, will try to be hardcore and tell me, yeah, man, I wake up in the middle of the night and I have a shake in the bathroom. And I say, you know what? Don't do that.
I don't know if I agree with that. Yeah, I'm about to say.
I did it when I was younger. And I even used to have cottage cheese because it's a casein protein, so it breaks down.
Yes, yeah.
I don't agree with that. I think when you sleep, you should allow the blood to circulate to your joints, your muscles, wherever it needs to go, not sit in your stomach and work hard to digest
or
food.
even disrupt sleep. What
Absolutely.
about that? I mean, you're disrupting sleep.
Is there research around like the effect on microbiome and just the digestive system around fasting and the benefits? I haven't looked into it, but
the benefits physically.
Yeah, just like you said, like there's a lot of research now about how the microbiome and your intestinal stuff can affect your depression and anxiety and all that. And I'm just wondering if there's any other connection.
I personally haven't read anything, or I'm not very well versed in the microbiome, but what you said about the gut and causing help, making better or worse depression and mood, I totally agree with. So yeah. I would say if I had to make an educated guess, it'll definitely help. There won't be the same bile and chemicals and stuff in your stomach. And the vast majority of people, to be perfectly honest, aren't eating wholesome, healthy foods.
Yeah, but we sorry to interrupt, but we do know that the microbiome affects the brain, though. I mean, they're related. So the answer I would assume would be yes, right? I mean,
absolutely. Yeah.
I've had some of my best workouts hungry, like you guys have said. Like I'm starving, go do a workout, and I feel fantastic. So it's not a fuel issue.
Yeah.
I want to ask your opinion on, I mean, I have my opinion on it, but I want to get, obviously I want to get yours. When you discuss, you were talking about eating at 10 p.m. or 10:30, you have a 7:30 meal and a 10 o'clock meal, or maybe I'm getting it wrong. Maybe you said 10:30, but people are so panicked about eating late at night. What's your advice to them on that?
Okay. So the whole late at night eating thing is it's somewhat true, because why would you eat food when you're sitting around doing nothing, right? Food is fuel. You don't put gasoline in your car and park it in your driveway. You put gasoline and you drive it. So for regular people, yeah, you guys shouldn't be eating past 7, 8 o'clock at night. You shouldn't be eating much. But for an athlete, no, that goes completely out the window. For an athlete, you should be eating the amount of food that you need to be eating. We're very, very active throughout the day, and we're burning calories. So if you're eating 3,000 calories and you're burning 2,500 or 3,000, you're good.
Now, obviously, I don't want to give away all your secrets here, but could you at least can you fill us in on where's your daily caloric intake at right now?
Can you guys still see me? Because I lost video.
Yeah, perfectly.
Yeah, I lost video. My daily caloric intake. So at this point, I don't even know. When I start, I know all my macros. I know exactly how many carbs, fats, and protein I'm eating, but I don't know my calories. So throughout my prep, when my diet changes, sometimes it'll change for every week. Sometimes it won't change for a few weeks. I change around the macros, but I don't recalculate my calories. So my carbohydrate intake is very, very low currently. It's around 100 grams a day. My protein is about 6 ounces per meal, 6 meals. And then my fat comes from red meat, nuts, and avocado. But once a week, I have that carb refeed where my carbohydrates jump up 5 times. I have 500 grams of carbs, and my protein goes down, and I have no fats. So I don't have fatty protein, steak. I don't have the nuts or the avocado.
So you're basically just getting white fish, egg whites, just eating as lean as possible on that day.
Yeah, I eat the same protein sources like the chicken and all that stuff. I'm actually currently not eating fish. I love white fish. I don't like fishy fish. But what's really tough about white fish is that it just goes right through you. It's not satiating.
Right.
But what's good about white fish is it's probably the cleanest protein. Chicken breast is really, really hard to get organic, cage-free, and all that stuff. A white fish, any fish, you can get wild caught and you're good to go. And that's a whole nother video we can do, just talking.
Oh my God. I mean, I know, and I know I'm jumping around a little bit. I'm just trying to make sure that we dive in on some of the really important topics. So Derek, if it's cool, I want to move from nutrition for the next, 10 to 15 minutes, and maybe because nutrition, obviously, one of the most important areas, but your training, it's it's funny because Derek and I, we walk into a gym and you see people, and you can't help it as a coach. I've been a professional coach for 22 years of my life. Derek, even longer. He's older, but you walk into a gym and you're always kind of sitting there. And I'm not saying you're judging, but you can look at someone and say, what are they training for? Like you know if it's someone training for performance, someone training for bodybuilding, someone who doesn't know what they're doing, et cetera. And the one thing that's impressed me about your training is that, I mean, it looks like everything is, when I say calculated, I don't mean you're going in there with a sheet of paper saying, I'm going to hit 6 reps. I think that there's to an extent where you know the movements you want to do, but you're also going off of how your body's feeling and how you're creating tension on that specific day, et cetera. But you never give up on a rep. I've never seen you do one rep where I'm like, that guy's focus is somewhere else. Correct? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So I think that comes with just experience. I've just grown stronger physically and mentally. So I'm capable of pushing myself further. So a lot of guys I used to train with when I was young that didn't play sports or didn't play football, like football was one of the hardest things I ever did. We had Hell Week. We had 2-3 practices a day. We went to football camp. So I learned how to push through thresholds. Like I would literally be exhausted, want to fall down and throw up, but our coach would yell at us. Right. So when the average person starts feeling the burn, they put the weight down. But over time and over years and years of experience, you learn that that's where the magic happens and you push through it. First few times you might get lightheaded, you might get nauseous, you might even throw up. Mm-hmm. But if you keep doing that, your body will follow. It will do whatever your mind tells it. Always, whatever someone does in the gym and they're finished or they fail or it's maximum, I always tell them that's your physical body. You're capable of more. You just need to train yourself and push yourself to do that.
D, I mean, can you talk about sprinting a little bit? It's pretty similar, like when but seriously, I mean, what he's talking about right now, it's really no different. Where in the beginning, you got to condition yourself. You got to make sure during the drills that you're not going to get hurt, obviously, as a good coach. But then as you can handle more and more, your body can become more and more resilient. Talk about how those two relate a little bit.
Well, it's really interesting even just hearing about the football example because, we see games go into overtime. We see things get extended and people are still producing. So obviously there's that ability and it is a lot up here. And even, when we've tested people and 1 rep maxes for power cleans and all that, it's amazing. If you give them more attempts, they will go up and, they can move the weight up. So I think that's a really good point about you can't limit yourself with any of this stuff. And obviously you got to use science and you got to be smart so people don't get hurt. But certainly that's a huge part of it is going through those trials and tribulations and failing and then succeeding and going, hey, maybe I can push myself more. I think a lot of people don't really look at that piece, and they might go like in NFL right now and in sports, they use GPS and like, oh, this guy can only do this much because we did this in practice. And it's like, well, maybe he can do more. And I think sometimes the science and the wearables can limit you, right? Like I'll go for a run. I'm like, oh my God, I'm running faster. Like Steve Magnus said this in our podcast. And he said, oh, my pace is too fast. It's like, well, maybe you can do that today. Why limit yourself, right?
Yeah. So it's all mental. It's all what we believe we can do. The 4-minute mile, it's impossible. Nobody can run a 4-minute mile. And then someone ran it. And then the following year, I don't know what it was, but like 60 people ran it. Yeah. If you went back in time and told Arnold Schwarzenegger that one day, Arnold was like 240, 250 pounds. If you told him one day there's going to be a bodybuilder, 300 pounds on stage with half of your body fat, he would laugh.
You're out of your mind. Yeah,
his name is Ronnie Coleman. I just finished watching the Jordan documentary, and you talk about the football players. He's my favorite human being. Like,
it was one of the best things you've ever seen, right?
I watched the whole thing in like 3 days. I've never followed sports. I played all sports, but I've just never been a person that followed for whatever reason. I don't know why. Maybe the way I was raised. And I wore the Jordans when I was younger, but I didn't particularly know much about Michael Jordan. If anything, I've heard bad things about him. My family lives in the same state that he grew up in, all this stuff. He's my favorite human being on the planet Earth after watching that documentary. You know, you talk about the football players, they go into the overtime and they obviously are getting it from somewhere. It's all here. The man was just like physically driven by his mind. I don't even think he had the best genetics in the NBA.
Yeah, it really it's pretty incredible what the mind can do, and it's pretty incredible the limitations people, set for themselves in life. And that was one impressive thing about Arnold was that he had that it was that fine line of like confidence and cockiness. Like you could probably say he was a little cocky, but he was
Yeah.
such a smart guy. But when he got up there, he knew he was going to win before he would win. But you see it in his training. You'd see it in all the old movies. I mean, how many times have you seen Pumping Iron?
Yeah.
Whether a lot of that was fabricated or not, who knows? But you could just see, even at that time, I think the most impressive thing about him, and no one ever, I can't believe enough people don't talk about this, but he started talking in 1975. He's like, all right, I've won in bodybuilding, in his accent. He's like, and I want to go do movies. And then, I want to become a movie star. And then after that, I want to get into politics. And I could see anyone listening to him being like, dude, stick with bodybuilding in 75. And the fucker did it. He became governor of California. He was making $30 million a movie. I mean, the guy literally talked himself into that at a young age. And if you instill that in your head, I believe that you can, like, if you believe you're going to win Olympia and you're just like, that's all you believe in, then hell yeah, it's going to happen, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I
like
don't know.
I don't know if you guys, I was watching like Eddie Van Halen stuff, like videos and
Unreal.
just interviews and about how he drove himself. Like don't use him as an example for nutrition or health, but certainly how he drove himself for innovation and building and guitars and all that was amazing. Like the stuff that I found on those videos.
I think one of the huge factors with all successful athletes and people, but what we're talking about Jordan and Arnold is that two things. One, confidence. They were both scared. Like Jordan, like Arnold is definitely scared. He was scared of his components, bless you. And so was Muhammad Ali. You know, Muhammad Ali, when he beat Foreman, he was like about to tap out. They had the fear in them, but they were confident. Most people, how do we get confidence? It's not arrogance, it's not false confidence. When we achieve things, rightfully so, we should give ourselves credit, be confident. Now, more confidence, you're able to achieve more. You achieve more, you're more confident, and so on. And a lot of people don't do that. They don't allow to pat themselves on the back and celebrate, and they're just very hard on themselves. So confidence is a huge factor, and the other one is knowing what you want.
Right.
Sounds silly, but I don't think most people know what they want. You go up to someone, your loved one, when we get off this podcast, go ask someone, hey, what do you want in life? Oh, I want to be wealthy and healthy and successful. What does that mean? That's so vague.
Right.
Wealthy might be 1,000 or 100,000 or 1,000,000 to someone. So we need to get like specific with our desires and envision it. Arnold is very interesting about Arnold at a very young age. He had Steve Reeves's poster up. He wanted to be that. And like, there was nothing else. There was nothing like, oh, maybe I want to be a race car driver. Maybe I want to be it was just, that was what he wanted to do. All of his energy and his vibrational energy and his mental and physical focus was put on that. Same thing with Jordan. Jordan started off with his family, became very competitive, but he was tunnel vision in basketball. I think being an entrepreneur is awesome, but I think people don't understand what it takes to be an entrepreneur. You need to be a master at one thing first. You need to if you want to really, really be good and really be successful, you need to master whatever it is your craft is. You need to be the best at it, know everything there is to know, and don't leave any stone unturned. And at the end of the day, if your focus is elsewhere, you're not going to be great. Like a lot of people nowadays, like they're messing around with their car, modifying it, going to Cars and Coffee on the weekend. They work out a little bit. They have a career. They collect clothes and hats. Like that person's never going to be great at any of those things.
Right.
Now, is it antisocial? Are you going to get shit from your family? Are people going to tell you, take a break, stop working so hard? Yes. All successful people have heard that, and they've all stayed focused and ignored it.
Right. Right. Definitely. I've definitely seen that. It's interesting talking to the mindset. And Derek, I want to finish with one thing, and then you can hop in with that, whatever you need. But the mindset. I was talking to one of my challengers she won one of our last challenges. You know, I host these monthly challenges, and she did over the last 3 months. She lost something like 40 pounds and 70 inches. Like the woman she just became like possessed. And what was interesting was, you know, I'm on this Zoom call with her, and she, when I was talking with her, I started laughing because she had this level of like certainty. She's like, in the past, I was always the question every morning whether I'm going to do it. She's like, it's not even a question. And she's just like looking at me with this sick look in her face. She's like, I know what I have to do. This is what makes me feel good in life. And I've passed that barrier now. Like, what's next? And she was so driven on that. And this is an amateur. This is someone who this clicked on the last couple of months. And I believe that most people are selling themselves short. And I believe that most people are not hitting their goals because in the beginning they want to have their cake and eat it too. And sometimes it's not that easy to be able to, like you said, you know, do your car show or modify your car and then go do a little bit of gym. But to be great at something, you got to put your time in.
Yeah, yeah. A good friend of mine said, you know, on this hunger thing, he says you got to stay hungry. Like it's better to be hungry than it is to be satiated all the time, right? So, yeah, I'm just looking forward to Arash coming out with the cookbook. I would buy your cookbook, man.
Rush, not a bad idea.
I really, and I've been thinking about it forever. I really got to do it. There's so many things that I'm not doing and leaving on the table. But yeah, the cookbook, I mean, it sounds funny, but I have so many little tricks and recipes over the years.
Take one project like that a year, add that to your thing. And I don't know, I think that would be great. And I think there's a big void in the market on that. You know, everyone they're not sure on the right stuff to do. Arash, can you tell everyone where they can find you?
Absolutely. My Instagram is Arash Rahbar. And I have a YouTube page also, Arash Rahbar.
Awesome. And I know Arash has got some incredible programs up there. You'll see Arash training at Bev Francis Powerhouse Gym, one of the better guys that I know. And Arash, it's been great getting to know you over the last couple of years, man. And I know you're going to be standing on that stage holding that big trophy over your head soon.
Thank you,
the
brother.
Olympia, that is.
I appreciate that.
All right, brother. Listen,
Awesome.
we'll let you know. Derek and I will send you the footage when it's done. Him and I are going to be posting it to our social channels. Anywhere you want to share is greatly appreciated. And maybe if it's cool with you, we'll get you on another episode to talk dive in a little bit more about nutrition.
I would love to, man. Love talking on all these subjects. I love talking on, for more, not necessarily just about bodybuilding, but the nutrition, lifestyle, and also mindset, like
That's
the
awesome.
whole law of attraction thing and positive thinking is misunderstood greatly.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah. So anytime, let me know.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Derek, thank you for today.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Arash.